Welcome to the Happy Black Woman Podcast, where we're on a mission to empower women to transform their lives through personal development and entrepreneurship. We bring you all the information, inspiration, and motivation you need to create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Now, please welcome your host, the happy Black woman herself, Rosetta Thurman.
Hello, ladies, and welcome back to the Happy Black Woman Podcast. This is Rosetta Thurman, your host, and I am back with another incredible guest here today. We are talking to Chivon John. She is the founder of Secrets of a Side Hustler, and we're talking less about business today and more about how we can take care of ourselves, self-care as entrepreneurs. So I'm very excited for this interview. But first of all, welcome, Chivon.
Thank you so much, Rosetta.
Thank you for being here. I just am so excited to dive right in and pick up our conversation where we left off. We were chatting before I hit record, and as usual, I'm always trying to remember where I first found out about my guests, because a lot of times someone's name is in my orbit, it's on my list, it's on, people are recommending them, and I'm trying to figure out, where did I first meet this person? And we determined that we first met, Chivon and I, through one of my very first courses, and it was called the Side Hustle Boot Camp. And that was at least 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2011.
Yes. And I just remember, I was kind of embarrassed, thinking about it, because I just remember that course. It was like a fire hose. I was just teaching everything that I knew at the time. And I just realized I overwhelmed, most people, but you guys got a lot of information, and it looks like you've been able to put some of it to use with your business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing that we took a side hustle course. I took one of your side hustle courses, and now I help side hustlers. So it's come full circle, which is amazing.
Yeah. I always say that you've got to learn it before you can teach it, of course. And sometimes you don't know what your passion is until you tap into it for yourself. And so I think it's really cool that you're carrying the side hustle torch. But just as a quick update, and everyone knows, I just use my podcast as the excuse to connect and catch up with people. So what's happened since, 2010, 2011? What's happened for you in your business? Tell everybody what you're doing now.
Yeah, so a lot has happened. So it's funny, when I started the course, I was actually kind of in my early stages of starting a side hustle. I actually had 2 side hustles at the time. I had a small consulting company that I had, as well as I was very much heavily involved in the fitness and wellness space. I had a fitness and wellness blog. I was also a fitness competitor. And really where my Secrets of a Side Hustler community originated was that I struggled and felt overwhelmed with managing a job and having these side hustles. And I was really seeking an outlet to have some honest conversations about self-care, about the actual balance of being a business owner, but also being an employee. And when I couldn't find an outlet or an event to have this, I actually created it. And that's where Secrets of a Side Hustler was born. And I love the fact that today we're talking about self-care for entrepreneurs, because really the idea for this community was mainly driven because I wanted an outlet to have some honest conversations about self-care when it came to business. And that because it was something that I noticed that we didn't talk enough about as entrepreneurs, or even as people who are juggling a business or wanting to start a business on the side. So in the last couple of years, I've been really focusing on this particular segment of individuals, people that I like to refer to like side hustlers, but folks who have a boss, but also are a boss, and having lots of different events. Last year, I created a conference called Side Hustle Week, which allowed a lot of different individuals within Toronto, which is where I'm based, to come together to talk about what it means to have a side hustle, be able to meet other people in the city who are starting or are building their business on the side. But all throughout that process, self-care has always been something that I've been so passionate about. So I actively do, outside of this community, workshops on the importance of self-care for entrepreneurs with nonprofits, and interweaving that conversation into the work that I do with the community. So allowing that people to understand that as much as we want to create an amazing business and we talk about hustling and making things happen, that we remember that in order for any of the things that we want to make happen requires us to do it. Everything that we want has you in common is a quote that I love to remember, is that anything that I desire, that anything I want to go after requires me to make it happen. So it's always so important that we don't forget as we're, building our empires, that we're not also pouring back into ourselves at the same time. So that's a little bit about me, and what I've been doing is just that I really am a community focused person, like really bringing people together, but allowing them to remember that, as much as we are passionate about making things happen and being of service, that we also have to be of service to ourselves.
Yes, so important, and such an important conversation for, the beginning of 2017, as everyone is got all their goals. And, I am definitely one of those people. And what I've learned over the past few years is that it's really important to plan for, success, but also plan for self-care, plan for taking care of myself in the midst of all of that. So Chivon, tell us a little bit about where this whole focus came from for you. So if we could dig a little deeper into your business and, tell us a little bit about what was that personal connection that you had to this topic? We know it's important, but why this? Why you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think for me, and I think as any entrepreneur, any teacher, like we usually teach the things that we've either experienced or that we want to know or a little bit more about. But why self-care is so important for me is that it's definitely become a lifeline and an important reminder of why I'm here. Like, in order for me to continue going forward and to do and pursue all the different things that I want to do, I have to make sure that I'm at my best and that I'm feeling not only great physically, but having that emotional and mental wellness. So I've spoken a little bit about this on my personal blog, and I've been pretty open about the fact that I've had my own mental health challenges. When I was younger, I struggled with depression. I've also overcame having an eating disorder and struggled with anxiety. So as anyone knows, is even just being a Black woman or just in the Black community, even having conversations about mental health, I think we've come a long way. But there's a little bit of even some stigma about it, of people not even wanting to have those conversations. So I knew for myself, it's important to, you have that fear, or even that just kind of that, what are people going to think or what are they going to say? I found that just being open and sharing has been so powerful and so helpful than, living in the silence of worrying about, oh, am I going to be judged for this? Like, I've only had positive things that have happened in being open and being vulnerable and allowing people to understand that sometimes you have some moments where you struggle. And if I didn't really lean into, the self-care and of understanding, and that it's important to pour back into myself and that I'm worth it, then I wouldn't be, I think, as passionate as I am now. Because I think I've had my moments where I've been at my lowest moments. And because I've been able to crawl out of that, and I had people who were, that were supporting me, and they contributed to my recovery of realizing that I have like an amazing life to live for. It's made me even more determined to help people to realize that no goal, no business or passion project that you might have is more important than your personal and mental health and physical well-being. So that's why I think for me, because I've had those moments where I felt so low or I haven't felt at my best, I've had moments where I've been burnt out, that I've seen that it's just not worth it. And you start to second guess yourself, you start to doubt yourself, and we have such an amazing life and nothing is really promised. And for me, I'm just so passionate to help people to see that there's so much amazingness in this world, and you deserve to be at your best to experience it. So I think no matter what I do from a business perspective, I knew I'd always have to have that message in alignment with what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. There's so much that we can learn just from you sharing your personal story. And I thank you for being open about that, because we've had so many conversations on the show so far with very, very successful entrepreneurs, successful writers, authors who talk about the importance of taking care of yourself. And always there's some moment in our lives, whether it's, when we're growing up or as we got older or as we started our business or our career, that there's something that, really happened that showed us how important it was. And it wasn't like built in, that we
Yeah.
knew we had to do this, but it was something, a health issue, a depression, something. And so I love that you said, it's so common. We all struggle. And the problem comes in when we try to pretend like we don't. And we try to pretend like success is no cracks on the surface. And that's just not reality. It's not even anything to aspire to, because it's a never ending cycle that you would get yourself into.
Absolutely. It's so important to remember that, like you said, that success is not absolutely perfect. And there's I hope I don't botch this quote, but it's like, you need to have cracks to let the light come in. It's always sometimes darkest before the dawn. Like, one of the things that I've learned over the years as well is that you have to embrace kind of those low moments in our life. Sometimes you get, like, when you're pulling an arrow back, it has to be pulled back and be dragged back in the past, or, pulled along before you can actually be propelled into greater and bigger things. So I think that it's important to just acknowledge that, there are some times where you're not going to be at your best, but it doesn't mean that you should count yourself out. And it's important as well that we are open, when appropriate, because I think as well, like, sometimes as you're going through things, it's maybe not always the best time to share, but to share and confide into people that you trust and that will be supportive to you. And it's important to kind of take and peel back those layers, because I think sometimes on social media, and we'll see income reports and all of these different things that make us think, like, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Can I do this? And yes, you can, but we also have to, as much as we share the amazing stuff, we also have to, share that sometimes things are not always as perfect. And here's how you can get through that.
Totally. And I love what you said about the comparison piece, because that is a very unique, I think it's unique to women in general, but the way that we compare ourselves to each other. And then when it comes to women entrepreneurs, which I know is, your target market and part of mine as well, there's the word that keeps coming to my mind is violent. There's an almost violent level of comparison that happens with women business owners. And so it's like, we have the normal comparison that we do as women, her butt is better than mine, or, body stuff, beauty stuff. And then we've got business stuff on top of it. And it's almost like women entrepreneurs have it like double. And so I see people, very, very much comparing. Do you find that that's one of the biggest barriers that entrepreneurs have in terms of really being whole and healthy in this work?
Comparison is definitely just this act of violence against yourself. It's a quote I believe I've heard from, I can't remember who said it, but every time we look at another individual, and I think sometimes when people look at other business owners, it's almost this mentality of thinking that, okay, maybe there can only be one person in this area who's successful. And if we see somebody who might have that same thing that we crave, we think, well, oh no, that person already has it, so maybe I can't do it now. Or if somebody has an idea that's similar to what you're creating or wanting to launch, it's like, oh no, they've already done it, so I therefore can't do it. It creates all of this sort of mental dialogue in our minds of thinking that we're not enough, or we won't be good enough, or I can't do it because this other person has already done it. And I think it's important to just realize that nobody can do something in the same way that you can, because you're a unique person. They can't tell the story in the same way that you have, because you have unique experiences and stories. They can't launch something in a different way. Like, everybody has a unique purpose and value that they bring to the market. And I think it's important as well that it's also okay that if things trigger you, don't be afraid to hit the unfollow button. And also, if there's opportunities as well, that if we look at somebody and we have that twinge of whether it be envy or a feeling of comparison, is see if there's a way that you can maybe even reframe that and use that as a mirror of, what feeling am I actually getting out of this when I look at this individual? Is it because maybe, for instance, they have a lot of followers and they're very consistent? So, for instance, if I'm looking at somebody who constantly launches things and I'm wondering, well, how come they're able to do things so quickly? Can I learn from maybe something that they're doing? So instead of looking at it like from an envious perspective or saying that, oh, I can't do what they're doing, or even, being negative towards them, maybe you can use that envy as motivation and maybe see maybe if there's something that they're doing that you can maybe reflect back into your own business or own practices that you can learn from. Or if it's something that you just can't do, just I'm of the mindset of like, just kind of protect your peace and maybe unfollow things or unsubscribe from things that are, triggering you until you're able to kind of look at it from a perspective of this is not my competition. And this could potentially be somebody that is, on the same path as me. They're just doing their thing and not looking at them as somebody who's a competitor, but just somebody who's just a comrade, who's in the same business as you of just trying to make things happen.
Right. Totally. I mean, this is a process. I always like to think of things as never unfinished, like how we evolve so that there's never this pressure to be perfect or to be polished or whatever it is that we think arriving in business means. So given that it's a process and all of that, I know that you encounter entrepreneurs who are at all stages of the process. What are some things you can share with us in terms of action steps or strategies that beginning entrepreneurs can implement? And actually, I should say beginning entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who kind of need a reset, kind of need to hit the reset button, like they need to go back and learn the things they should have learned but didn't. Yeah. So what are some things that we can start with in order to take care of ourselves better as business owners, making our mark in the world?
That's a great question. So some of the things, I guess, to kind of go back to basics is I love to think about intentions and how do you actually want to feel? Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the doing of business or, trying to be a boss, trying to build an empire, trying to be a mogul. And we jump right in with enthusiasm because I've done this as well too. And you just want to make things happen. And we almost even forget the step of just like, what am I actually trying to create? And not even just what I'm trying to create, but how do I actually want to feel throughout this process? And I think it's important to kind of think about that and kind of set those intentions, because a lot of times as we're building our business or if we're pursuing something that's really important to us, we can tend to get very tunnel vision focused on just achieving that thing and forgetting to kind of stop and celebrate the small milestones in pursuit of that bigger vision that we might have. And I say that because as we're building our businesses, we should enjoy the process as much as the journey, as much as we enjoy the destination. And I feel like sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in, I have to work on meeting the specific, income number or launching a specific product. And we get so focused on the actual goal that we neglect ourselves in the process. So that's why we find sometimes we'll feel so burnt out after meeting a specific goal because we haven't really focused on enjoying that journey, or we feel like so depleted after we've met a big goal because we have kind of treated it more of, I'm just focused on the destination. So I really would start with like, what is my intention? How do I want to feel throughout this process? Not just when I achieve it, but in pursuit of it. Another thing that I would say is like, taking time to enjoy the small moments. So again, this is kind of related to the first one of like thinking about your intentions and how you want to feel. A practice that I love and that I've had for about 2013 is I have a gratitude jar. Some folks have like a journal. There's like the 5-minute journal. There's all these different practices. But what I like to do is I have like a small jar that you can just get at any store. And I like to just use that to record either any small wins that I've had in the day or just things that I'm grateful for. And it just really helps to put things in perspective. Just taking a moment to be like, I'm grateful for the individual that I met at the store who like bought me coffee, or just like little things, because we can get so caught up in all the things that we have to do and sometimes forget about some amazing things that have even happened in our day, or just amazing people who have impacted an interaction with us. So I love to just kind of create some sort of like rituals and gratitude practices to kind of help me feel a little bit centered. And those I find really help me on the days when I'm actually having a bad day and I need to kind of go back and be like, okay, maybe I'm not feeling that great today from a business perspective or just in general. I love to be able to kind of go into that jar and just kind of take a step back and remember some amazing moments. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. And another thing that really helps me as well too is just like being intentional about making time for self-care. And when we think of the word self-care, we think about sometimes it always has to be something physical or it's like, a spa day or things like that. And I think self-care could be as easy as, for me, like taking an hour and turning off my phone, or turning my phone on airplane mode every night before I go to sleep or in the morning. Just like having intentional moments in my day that I kind of create as non-negotiable time. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be long. I think times when we think about taking care of self and self-care, we think it has to be like, okay, I'm blocking off my whole day and I'm like turning on my out of office and I'm leaving for a week. And it really, for me, it could be something as so simple as I'm not going on social media for the rest of the evening. Just like small intentional steps, things like if you find yourself, you're constantly anxious and you're always going on your phone, I'm not going to go on my phone for the rest of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to, set up some time every morning where I'm going to, meet up with a friend and maybe go for a run. So for myself, like I have a friend that I work out with on Sundays, and that's like a fun way for me to meet up with a friend of mine, and we get to catch up. And at the same time, we get to work out at the same time, as well. So it's like kind of a dual benefit in practice. So we're getting self-care, but we're also getting self-care from a physical perspective, but also from an emotional perspective. So I think it's just like being intentional about like, how do you want to feel, having some gratitude practices, and also just making sure that you make it non-negotiable, like actually actively making it a priority to say that this is something that's important to me. And, getting creative with how you expand your definition of self-care, because I think sometimes we think it's only physical, but it's really about also your emotional and your mental health as well, too.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I mean, I love what you said about being intentional, because I think that it's very acceptable and normal for entrepreneurs to be intentional about our business plans and all that kind of stuff. But to be intentional about our personal life is not so much. I mean, so many women in our Happy Black Woman tribe, and you know who I'm talking about, all you guys listening, there's so many of you that I've spoken to. A lot of us are very, very successful in business, and yet, our love life is in shambles because we haven't been intentional about it. And, our health is suffering because we've been so focused on this business goal. And so as something to get started with, or to go back to, just the whole concept of being intentional is a great place to start. And, not saying it has to be this big overhaul, but the small things that you mentioned about, schedule and having downtime and having that, great example, exercise with a friend. These are some things that they slowly get taken off the list, and we don't notice it until you start to feel it. And it's like, wait a minute, I used to do this. I used to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I used to have all these hobbies, and you're like, now your hobby is your business. Your hobby should not be your business.
Right. But it's the same thing. Yeah, you should totally have other things to do, but it's the same way with career too. A lot of us, I always say that the women in our Happy Black Woman tribe, we're not normal. We're like the women who are high achievers. We want more. Yes. We want it all. And so that leads us to really focus on those tangible, measurable goals, and not so much about the intangible and the things that you can't measure. Because it's the same thing with career. When I was working a full-time job, I wanted to be A++, top of the,
Yep. You want to climb the corporate ladder.
Yeah. Yep. We don't do anything halfway. It's like, if we're in, we're in. And what you're saying is that, how can we be all in when it comes to our self-care?
Absolutely. Like, we have to be all in for ourselves as well. Because I think sometimes we think that once we get the goal, or we get the money, we get the job, that all of those other things will take care of itself. And you'll find that most of the times you'll be so burnt out, or as you said, you may not have that relationship that you thought you were going to have because you didn't spend any time watering that garden. So it's more about just being intentional about that as you're in pursuit of all these amazing things, that you don't lose sight of the fact that this is a journey that we're on, that we're all high achievers, and it's going to take some time, but we have to ensure that we're not, ignoring those key pieces of our life that we know that are important, because we can't put those on the back burner, because by the time we actually turn around to look after it, you might feel that you won't even have the energy to be able to give it the attention that it deserves.
Yeah, totally. Well, Chivon, since you are the expert on this topic for today, tell us a little bit about how you incorporate this into your life. You talked a little bit about it in your tips, but for you, how do you stay in alignment with this? Like, do you have certain things that you incorporate into your week Are there any tools that you use to keep you on track? I know some people have like tools to help to stop them from being distracted online, or,
Yes.
a day where you just don't talk to anybody. What do you do throughout the week?
Yeah. So for me, like this online distractions are like pretty big for me. I'm one of those people who will just like by default sometimes just check my phone. I don't know, it's very strange. So I literally will put my phone on airplane mode, but like even for folks who find themselves just getting caught up with either social media or just even comparison, I have an app called Self-Control installed on my computer. So when I'm looking to just focus on getting things done or just wanting some quiet time where I'm not going to go onto those sites that will turn out to be kind of that big rabbit hole that you'll go into, whether it's be Facebook or one of those different tools. Once you kind of install that app and you type in the certain sites that you don't want to go on, it completely blocks you from going on there based on a specific time that you enter. So it's very good. I also have a Facebook newsfeed eradicator, which is a Google Chrome extension. So you can install that into your Chrome browser and it actually blocks your entire Facebook newsfeed. So if I log into Facebook right now, I don't see anybody's like newsfeed. So I don't get distracted by anything that people are posting. For me as well, I have a little app as well on my phone, which is called Forest. And what's really interesting is that how it's kind of meant and set up kind of like with the Pomodoro technique of it sets the timer to 25 minutes. And in that time, while that time is counting down, it encourages you not to touch your phone or to close the app to go into other apps. So if you're somebody who finds themselves, wanting to always check their email or wanting to go on Instagram or something like that, for instance, while that Forest app is on, it's like counting down the 25 minutes. And if you succeed without going into other apps, it builds a tree. So it's essentially building a forest. But if you don't, you kind of cave and you go and leave the app, it tears the tree down. So you're basically trying to you don't want your forest to look barren. So it's a cute way of trying to encourage you to grow your forest. So I found that was kind of a cute, visual reminder. In terms of just other action steps that I like to do just from a daily basis is I have an accountability partner who's also kind of like my business, bestie. And we check in with each other every week. So I like to create weekly to-do list, but what I kind of take it one step further where I just also do a weekly recap of my week, kind of like the highs, what are the things I'm thinking about, maybe some low points or just areas of, lessons or opportunity of my week. And I find it's almost become a little mini journaling process where I can just be completely open about here are some things that went well, but here are some things that, are on my mind or that didn't go very well or that I'm feeling stressed about. And I find that it's been so helpful to just be able to have that outlet, because I think sometimes we just have moments where we feel stressed or overwhelmed and we almost suppress that. And I think it's important, even if you don't share it with somebody, to just kind of journal that out and just be able to have an outlet where you can actually share how you're actually feeling. So that's my way of every week just doing a really good check-in with myself to be like, how did the week go? How am I actually feeling right now as I'm stepping into a brand new day? So that's one important form of self-care that I found has been so helpful, to just be like, you know what, yesterday wasn't great and here's why. And I can, as I'm actually being able to write that out, I'm almost at the same time being able, it's a very therapeutic process for me. And I'm able to kind of set new intentions of okay, maybe this didn't go well, but here's how I'm going to address this going forward. So that's something that's also important. And one other thing that I love to do just for moments or days when I have those kind of off days, I love to create voice notes. So when I'm feeling great or just kind of feeling inspired, I like to leave little mini pep talks to myself that I leave on my phone. So if I'm having a day where I'm just not feeling that great, or I just need a little bit of a, boost for the day, I have those kind of as my little self-care pep talks that I have saved as voice notes on my phone. And I also have some video versions on my laptop. So that's another way that I kind of just who better to motivate you than you, So I like to keep that as another way of practicing that self-care. And of course, I love, working out. I'm a personal trainer. A 2017 goal is to get my spinning instructor certification. So I'm always a fitness person, but for me, I love doing kind of those emotional mental health kind of self-care things, because I feel like that's the thing that is usually what trips us up. Like when it comes to taking a walk, going to the gym, like those are things that I feel like we don't have as much problem with, but it's the things that, just our mindset, or just feeling like we're overwhelmed, or, having that resilience to kind of pick yourself up when you're having a bad day. That's where I feel where we need to work that muscle the most. So that's where a lot of my self-care practices tend to focus on.
Wow, those are amazing ideas. I really love the apps you were talking about to eliminate distractions. It's
Yeah,
like self-accountability, because
it really is.
you say that you don't want to not go on there and then you go on, but there's nobody to like hold you accountable. It's just you in your office or at the coffee shop or whatever. I love those. And then I love the love notes. Also, that's a cool idea. And the gratitude jar. So many ideas that you guys can choose from to kind of just add something to your practice, your self-care practice. Sometimes I think some things that you may have done maybe last year or over the past few years, they worked then, but you have to refresh your practice to something that might be more effective, or something that I love Tony Robbins always talks about changing your state. And, you get used to being in a certain state. But when you add some different things to your practice, just like changing the way that you walk, home or whatever, it can really change your state of being for 2017. So if you want to switch some things out, add some things, take some away, and try some of Chivon's suggestions, that could be really cool for you guys. Awesome. Oh, I want to know a couple more questions. I want to know, is there a favorite book that you have that has inspired you in this journey of yours to really maintain your focus on your self-care while you're building businesses and getting certifications and all this? Is there a book recommendation you can share with us?
I really love Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection. That book for me, I just felt as if she was just like reading my entire life. And what I love about it is that I've considered myself to be like a recovering perfectionist. Like I remember my previous early corporate life, I'd always be the person who would just want to do everything perfectly and just wanting to execute. And I think even sometimes in our business, we just want to execute everything right on the first time, and we want to make things happen and make it look flawless. And what I love about this book is that it's really about letting go of this idea or this ideal that we've created for ourselves, or that we think that we need to be, and just really embracing who we are and giving ourselves a lot more self-compassion. Because I think that as someone, for myself personally, that I can say that I can be very hard on myself, and I've learned over the years that it's so important to not put so much pressure, the self-imposed pressure of believing that I have to do things a certain way, look a certain way, do things a certain way. And I can see now how that contributed so much to my anxiety and different challenges that I had before. So I really love this book from a self-care perspective, because I think a lot of times, a lot of the stress and emotional anxiety sometimes that we even feel, just even in business, is that we just feel that we're not doing enough, or that we're not going to be able to achieve the goals maybe in the time frame that we want, or that we put in this effort and we're not seeing the results. And it's so important for us to remember that, all of our journeys are going to be so unique and so different. And I love this book. I've read it a couple of times, and I'm actually reading it again right now. And it's a good thing to kind of even think about as we're leaning into new years, new goals, of just remembering that, who we are and how we feel about ourselves, that's what really matters. And it's not about, the perceptions of ourselves, and that we really need to cultivate that really strong sense of self, and to recognize that everything about us is unique and special, and that we have to let go of all of these perceived perceptions of what we think a specific business owner should look like, or how we should do things a certain way. Because one person is doing something a certain way doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, or if it's even meant for you. It's really about kind of just like looking at yourself and being like, you know what, I love myself. I'm enough as I am. And I'm going to just, I'm not going to do everything perfectly, and that's okay. And it's okay that I don't have all of the answers, but I'm still willing to take action anyway. So I think for me, it's kind of like my self-care guide. And it's something that I turn to when I have those moments of just like, oh, I don't know, what's next? What do I do? And again, it's like, I think that a lot of times the challenges that we have, it's not necessarily a physical one. It's just that doubt and all that pressure that we're putting on ourselves. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of people, even the most successful entrepreneurs or people in business or from a corporate perspective, like nobody has the right blueprint. It's always just, they just took some steps and they were consistent and they had a strong belief in themselves. That's what I really learned, is that it's not necessarily about who's smarter than you or who has more money or more access or more followers. It's really just being in alignment of having a very strong desire, having a very strong belief in that desire and in yourself, and just taking action consistently.
Yes.
That's really what it comes down to.
I love it. Wow, that's a great book recommendation and such a great way to close out our talk for today, because so many women who are beginning this journey really do need to hear that. They need to hear that there's not a one size fits all, and it really is a personal journey. I always say that, business is personal. It is so personal because we're all different and we all have a different way that we need to take care of ourselves and show up in the world. So thank you for what you're doing to show up in the world. Definitely there are people watching, and I'm very proud of what you have done since the last time we, worked together. And I know that there are going to be a lot of ladies who want to stay in touch with you, Chivon. So how can they do that?
Great. So you can visit me on my website, secretsofasideHustler.com. There's some brand new changes that are coming very soon. That's going to be focused a lot more on self-care and wellness, and helping you, grow a business that you love, but is also, helping and enriching your life at the same time. You can also follow me and connect with me on Instagram. I'd love to say hi to you guys at Chivon John. And also I'll have a brand new self-care mini course on my site called Hustling with Intention. So you can check that out on the website as well too.
Beautiful. I love it, Chivon. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It was a pleasure. Thank
you so much, Rosetta. Super proud and amazed at all the amazing things that you've done and building this beautiful community. So thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you today.
Yes, you're so welcome. Well, ladies, there you have it. Our conversation with Chivon is not the only one that you should be tuning into. By the way, there are over 50 other interviews that we've done on the Happy Black Woman podcast. And if you haven't listened to them, you are missing out. Just like Chivon shared today, all of these ladies have shared their expertise and their wisdom generously and authentically. And to go and listen to them, all you have to do is head over to happyblackwoman.com/podcast. And you can listen to all of them, binge listen this week, and get caught up. Until next time, have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Happy Black Woman podcast. If you want all the show's notes from today's episode, go to happyblackwomanpodcast.com. Plus, we'll send you a copy of Rosetta's free life mapping workbook. We look forward to empowering you next time. And until then, do something this week that makes you happy.